He told me he had to work late on the night of our 10th wedding anniversary. I bought candles. I booked the restaurant. I waited in my best dress. But then I found the receipt. He'd gone out to dinner with his 26-year-old assistant instead. So I did the only thing a woman in my position could do. I cancelled our mortgage. Stick with me while I share my story. And if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Claire Granger. I'm 37 years old, and I've been married to Logan for 10 long years. We met in college, built a life together, started a business, and bought a beautiful house. I thought we were building something real. I thought love was enough, but I was wrong. Our 10th anniversary was supposed to be special. I spent the whole day preparing. I bought a new dress, made a reservation at the restaurant we used to dream about, and even picked out a small gift. Logan texted me around 6 and said he was stuck at work. Emergency meeting, he claimed. I believed him. I always did. But later that night, while putting his suit jacket away, I felt something in the pocket. A receipt from that exact restaurant. 2 meals, 2 glasses of wine, and the date. That night, our anniversary. My heart dropped. I didn't want to believe it. I stared at the paper, hoping I was wrong. The next day, I called the restaurant. I asked if Logan had come in. The hostess said yes. He had dinner with a young blonde woman. Her name was Jenna, his assistant. My hands shook. My chest felt tight. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat there, remembering all the signs, the late nights, the way he smiled at her at company parties, the way he brushed off my concerns. I had ignored so much, for years. But I wasn't going to ignore this. I went quiet. Not weak, quiet. I started gathering information. Our house, the one worth over $1 million, was in my name. The mortgage had been paid with my inheritance. I checked the accounts. I called a lawyer. I made a plan. Logan left for another work trip the next weekend. I changed the locks. I filed the paperwork. I boxed up his things and left them on the porch with a note that said, "Since you already moved on, I figured it was time I did too." When he came home and tried to open the door, it didn't work. He called me, shouting. I stayed calm. I told him the house was mine, the marriage was over, and the mortgage was cancelled, just like us. He begged. He cried. I didn't destroy him. I just removed him from the life he didn't value. The signs were there. They had always been there. I just didn't want to see them. A year before our anniversary, Logan forgot my birthday. Not just forgot to buy a gift, he didn't even say the words. When I brought it up later that evening, he looked up from his laptop and said, "Was that today?" My heart sank, but I laughed it off. Told myself he was just busy. Then came the business trips. Short notice. No detail. Last-minute meeting with a client, he'd say, grabbing a suitcase and rushing out the door. I'd ask where he was going. Just somewhere in Chicago. Or, it's only for 2 nights. Vague. Always vague. I never pushed too hard. I wanted to trust him. Jenna started as his assistant a year and a half ago. She was young, energetic, always smiling, and Logan couldn't stop talking about her. At dinner, it was always, "Jenna handled that perfectly," or "Jenna saved me again today." At first, I thought it was just work praise, but over time the way he talked about her changed. Softer, warmer, too familiar. My best friend Mara noticed. She didn't hold back. "Claire, wake up," she told me once. "He's either emotionally cheating or he's already in deep." I hated hearing it. I told her she was overthinking. I didn't want drama. I didn't want to believe my husband could betray me like that. But deep down, something felt off. Logan had become distant, physically, emotionally, everything. Our conversations were short. Our laughs were gone. Our bed felt colder. He looked at his phone more than he looked at me. Still, I kept telling myself, this is just a rough patch. The week before our anniversary, he left for another trip. Mara raised her eyebrows when I mentioned it. Another trip? Let me guess. No hotel name? No flight info? I shrugged. I trust him. She sighed and hugged me. "You don't have to prove you're loyal, Claire. He's supposed to be loyal too." I brushed it off like always. I was tired of fighting the truth. But that receipt changed everything. All the moments I ignored came crashing back. Every missed birthday, every lie, every dinner, where he mentioned Jenna's name more than mine. I realized the truth had been knocking for years. I just hadn't opened the door. I was doing laundry, like I always did on Sundays, sorting through Logan's clothes. I grabbed his suit jacket from the hamper. It still smelled faintly of his cologne, and something else I couldn't place, like expensive perfume, but not mine. I reached into the inside pocket to check for anything he might have left behind. That's when I found it. A small, crumpled receipt. At first, I almost tossed it without looking, but something made me stop. Maybe it was the fancy logo printed at the top, or maybe it was my gut screaming for me to look closer. I smoothed it out and stared. The restaurant was Bellagio's, the place we used to talk about going to one day. A beautiful, candle-lit rooftop restaurant that overlooked the city. It had always been too expensive, too maybe next year for us. We used to laugh about it and say we'd go for our 10th anniversary. The date on the receipt? Our 10th anniversary. I stared at it for a long time. 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, 1 dessert, signed by Jenna. I read her name again, and again. Jenna. Logan hadn't worked late that night. He hadn't been stuck in meetings. He had taken his 26-year-old assistant out to the very restaurant we had dreamed of, on our anniversary, while I sat at home in a dress I picked just for him, while I lit candles, while I waited. I couldn't breathe. Still, I needed to be sure. So I called the restaurant. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm just checking to confirm a reservation." It was for the 14th, under the name Logan Granger. The hostess put me on hold for a moment, then came back. Yes, that reservation was for 2 guests. They arrived right on time. I believe the bill was signed by... Let me check. Yes, a Jenna. There it was. The final crack in the glass. The proof I hadn't even been looking for, but that had found me anyway. I sat down on the edge of our bed and just stared at the receipt in my hand. Something inside me went very quiet, not broken, just still, like a switch had flipped. All the moments I had pushed aside, all the warnings I had ignored, all the gut feelings I had talked myself out of, it all pointed to this. Logan had betrayed me, not just emotionally, not just with words or distance. He chose her. On a night that was supposed to be ours, I folded the receipt and placed it gently into my jewelry box. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because I wasn't ready to throw it away just yet. It was no longer just a piece of paper. It was the moment everything changed, and I knew exactly what I had to do next. That night, I sat across from Logan at the dinner table. I had reheated leftovers and made his plate like I always did, just like nothing had changed. But everything had. I looked at him, really looked at him, and wondered how many lies were hidden behind that familiar smile. "I found a receipt," I said softly, not accusing, just stating a fact. He looked up, fork halfway to his mouth. "What receipt?" "For Bellagio's, the night of our anniversary." He blinked, then recovered quickly. "Oh, that. It was just a work dinner. Last minute. I didn't want to bother you." "With Jenna?" I asked, still calm. "She's part of my team, Claire. You're being paranoid again." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded and took another bite of rice. I let him believe I was swallowing his lies, like I had so many times before. But something in me had shifted. I wasn't looking for the truth anymore. I already had it. Over the next few days, I began moving differently, quietly, carefully. While Logan continued his usual routines, gym, work, late-night meetings, I started gathering documents. I found the folder with our joint bank account info, insurance policies, mortgage details, and every paper I had once trusted him to handle. And that's when I discovered something interesting. Our house, it was in my name, fully. Logan had insisted years ago that it would help with taxes, that it was smarter this way since I had the cleaner credit score. I had trusted him. Now, that detail became my weapon. I took pictures of everything, stored them in a hidden folder on a backup drive. Then I searched for a divorce attorney. I didn't tell anyone, not even Mara. My first meeting was quiet, efficient. I sat across from a woman who didn't ask for explanations. She asked for facts. I gave them, calmly, just like I had with Logan. By the time I left her office, the plan was already in motion. There were steps to follow, forms to file, strategies to prepare. I walked out of there knowing something with absolute clarity. This marriage was collapsing, not in a storm, not with screams or slamming doors, but slowly, quietly, like a house built on sand. And I was done pretending it could still stand. Claire sat at her kitchen table, papers spread out like puzzle pieces. Her fingers trembled slightly, but her mind was steady. For years, she had trusted Logan with everything, her time, her love, her money, and now she was going to take it all back, legally, quietly, completely. It started with a simple fact her attorney had confirmed. The house, now worth over $1.3 million, was in Claire's name alone. Logan had insisted on it years ago, saying it was smarter for taxes because of her credit and financial history. She had agreed, like she always did, not realizing then what a gift that choice would become. What Logan didn't know was that the entire mortgage had been paid off recently, using money Claire had inherited from her grandmother, money that had been left in her name, in a separate account. She'd never thought much of it at the time, just a responsible wife helping out with the home they shared. Now, it was the thread she'd pull to unravel everything. With her lawyer's help, Claire legally froze the joint account she shared with Logan. It was subtle, done with just a few signatures and a quiet submission of documents. No alarms, no warnings. Logan wouldn't even know until he tried to use it. Next, they worked on terminating the mortgage early. Because the house was fully in her name and the debt was cleared, Claire could file to end it. The bank confirmed everything. She had the deed in her hand a week later. Claire stood on the front porch the day it arrived in the mail, clutching the envelope like it was a shield. She wasn't doing anything sneaky. Every step she took was above board, within the law. Her lawyer made sure of it. Claire didn't want revenge that could backfire. She wanted a clean break, one that couldn't be undone. She began redirecting all utilities and services to her personal accounts. She started closing down every shared credit line and removed Logan's name from anything she could, quietly, with focus. No emotion, just precision. While Logan went about his days pretending nothing was wrong, Claire was building her escape, one document at a time. This wasn't about hurting him the way he hurt her. It wasn't about drama. It was about control, taking it back after giving it away for too long. Claire didn't need to scream or cry or beg. She just needed to finish what she started, and she would. Claire waited patiently. She knew Logan had another business trip coming up, the kind that required no itinerary, no follow-up calls, and came with a cologne-soaked shirt. She didn't argue. She kissed him goodbye at the door like everything was normal. And once he drove off with his suitcase and lies, she went to work. The locksmith arrived the next morning. Claire stood by the door, arms crossed, silent as the man replaced the old locks with shiny new ones. It was done in less than an hour. She thanked him, paid in cash, and walked back into the house feeling lighter. Next, she moved to the bedroom. She pulled out Logan's clothes, every last shirt, suit, and pair of socks, his watches, his shoes, his grooming kits, all the things that once filled their closet with signs of a life they shared. She folded them carefully, not out of love, but closure. Box after box, she packed his belongings and stacked them neatly by the front door. On top of the final box, Claire placed a handwritten note. No anger, no long explanation, just a line that said everything she needed. Since you already moved on, I figured it was time I did too. She stepped back and looked at it all. 6 boxes, 1 suitcase, and a chapter finally closed. That evening, she filed the final set of divorce papers her lawyer had prepared. She didn't cry. She didn't hesitate. Her signature felt like freedom. 2 days later, Logan returned. His car pulled into the driveway just after sunset. He walked up the steps, fumbling for his key like he always did, but it didn't fit. He tried again, confused. Then he saw the boxes, then the note. Claire watched from the upstairs window, unseen. He stood there, staring at the words, trying to make sense of it all. He knocked once, then again, but Claire didn't answer. The house was quiet, her house. For the first time in 10 years, Claire felt safe in her own home. Logan was locked out, not just of the house, but of the life he thought would always be waiting for. She didn't owe him an explanation. He already knew why. Logan showed up the next morning, banging on the front door like the house still belonged to him. His face was red, confused, and angry. Claire didn't rush. She took a sip of her coffee, walked calmly to the door, and opened it just enough to step outside, shutting it gently behind her. "Claire, what is this?" Logan barked, pointing at the boxes still sitting untouched on the porch. "My key doesn't work. What the hell is going on?" She looked at him like a stranger. There was no anger in her eyes, just calm, steady clarity. "You don't live here anymore," she said simply. "The house is in my name, the mortgage is paid, and we're done." Logan's jaw dropped. "Are you crazy? You can't just kick me out of my own house." "It's not your house," she replied, holding up a folder. "This is the deed, in my name. The mortgage was paid with my inheritance. You wanted it that way for the tax benefits, remember?" He tried to grab the folder, but she stepped back and opened it instead. Inside were the divorce papers, the account freeze confirmation, and the legal notice proving her ownership. Every detail was in order, every box checked. He shook his head, his voice rising. "You're being emotional, irrational. We can fix this. You're overreacting." Claire let out a small laugh. "Logan, I stayed quiet for 10 years while you slowly stopped seeing me, while you replaced conversations with silence and our anniversary with your assistant. I'm not overreacting. I'm finally reacting. His face twisted. It didn't mean anything. Jenna, it's not serious. It was a mistake. Claire met his eyes. Then maybe she'll let you crash at her place. Logan's bravado cracked. He stopped yelling. His shoulders dropped. Claire, please. Let's talk. Just talk. You're my wife. Not anymore, she said. You made your choices. I made mine. He stared at her, stunned. She looked peaceful, certain. He had no control over her anymore, and it scared him more than anything. I loved you, he whispered. She nodded. Maybe, once, but love doesn't look like lies or betrayal. Claire turned and walked back into her house without another word. The door clicked shut behind her. Logan was left standing on the porch, alone, silent, and for the first time, powerless. Inside, Claire sat back down, picked up her coffee, and took another sip. The sun poured in through the windows, and she felt warm, strong, free. The house was quiet now, still. Claire walked through the living room, a cardboard box in her arms, and paused in front of the fireplace. The photo on the mantel showed her and Logan, smiling, arms around each other, taken on their honeymoon. She stared at it for a long moment. Her smile in the picture looked real. His now felt like a lie. She placed the photo in the box. Room by room, she sorted through the life they'd built. 10 years of memories and heartbreak packed into boxes. Anniversary cards with sweet words that now felt empty. Gifts that once meant everything. Trinkets from vacations. Little notes he left her in better years. Each item stung a little, like peeling off an old scab, but it also felt like healing. She picked up a framed drawing Logan had once commissioned of their first home. She had loved that gift. Back then, it made her feel seen. Now, she dropped it gently into a donation pile. Her bedroom was next, the space that once held quiet laughter, whispered dreams, and late-night talks. She stripped the sheets, opened the closet, took down the tie rack Logan never used but insisted on keeping. The top shelf held their wedding album, leather-bound and thick with photos, all smiles and promises. She sat on the edge of the bed, album in her lap, flipping through the pages. She didn't cry. The tears had dried up days ago. She just felt tired, and then, oddly, relieved. As she closed the book, she stood, walked to the trash bin in the garage, and tossed it in without a second thought. Later that afternoon, Claire stood in the center of the bedroom with a paint roller in hand. The walls had been pale blue, Logan's choice. She now painted them warm beige, her choice. With each stroke, she imagined her future, quiet mornings, honest friendships, and a space that finally felt like hers. When the room was done, she lit a candle, opened the windows, and let the fresh air in. She didn't just clean the house, she cleared her heart. Claire woke up at 8:30 a.m. with sunlight pouring through her bedroom windows. No alarm, no shouting, no tension sitting heavy in the air. She stretched, slipped on her robe, and walked barefoot into her new kitchen, a space she had redesigned herself. The counters were white marble now, not the dark granite Logan insisted on. The walls were sage green, software calm, heron. She brewed a fresh pot of coffee, leaned against the counter and smiled. Freedom, she realized, tasted exactly like coffee at 9 a.m. Warm, simple, and made just the way she liked it. It had taken months to get here. After the divorce was final, Claire didn't rush to fill the silence with someone else's voice. She welcomed it. It gave her space to hear herself again, to listen to the dreams she'd buried for a man who never really saw her. One of those dreams had always been interior design. So, she dusted off her old sketches, took a few online courses, and started posting her designs online. To her surprise, people noticed. A neighbor asked her to redo their living room. Then a friend asked for help with their nursery. Slowly but surely, Claire was booking clients. Not big jobs at first, but honest work. Work that made her excited to wake up. Mara, her best friend, never left her side. They laughed again like they used to. Over wine, over takeout, over long talks about everything and nothing. One night, Claire hosted a dinner party. Just 6 close friends. No fancy table settings, no show. Just good food, candles, and people who had stood by her. As they toasted her new business, Claire Granger Designs, she looked around the table and felt something she hadn't in years. Content. Real, quiet contentment. Some evenings, she still felt a little lonely. That was normal, but she didn't fill it with noise or dates. She sat with it, let it pass. because she had learned that peace didn't mean never feeling alone. It meant knowing you were whole, even when no one else was around. There was no new love story yet, and Claire didn't mind. She had time. For now, she had mornings without stress, work that made her proud, friends who truly cared, and coffee, still hot, at 9 a.m. She had everything she needed. Dear Logan, you'll never read this letter, and honestly, that's the point. There was a time when I would have begged for your attention, your honesty, your heart. I spent years shrinking myself to fit into the tight, quiet space you gave me in your world. I excused the missed birthdays. I forgave the cold shoulders. I smiled through Jenna's name, constantly slipping into our dinner conversations. But this letter isn't to rehash the past. I lived it. I survived it. This is a thank you note, not for the love we had, but for the final betrayal that cracked everything open. The receipt in your pocket, the lies on our anniversary, the moment I realized I'd become invisible in my own marriage. That's when I stopped begging for scraps and started remembering who I was before you and who I am now. She's strong. She's awake. She's free. You see, I didn't leave you because of Jenna. I left you because I finally loved myself enough to walk away. Your betrayal didn't ruin me. It revealed the parts of me I'd abandoned, my creativity, my peace, my voice. I have those back now. I no longer flinch at the sound of a door opening. I no longer second-guess my worth based on someone else's silence. I don't wait for permission to feel joy. You gave me freedom the moment you showed me exactly who you are, and I gave myself the rest. This letter will stay in my journal, folded between pages of sketches, notes, and dreams. The real parts of me that survived the storm. I won't send it. There's no need. You live in the past now. I've packed up that chapter, closed the book. Tomorrow, I board a plane to Italy, my first solo trip. No one to check in with, no one to answer to. Just me, my camera, my sketch pad, and the quiet thrill of rediscovering the world on my own terms. Goodbye, Logan, and thank you, truly, for setting me free. Claire. Do you think Claire was right to walk away and take back her life on her own terms? Or should she have given Logan another chance? Tell me what you think in the comments. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And if stories like this speak to you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one.